Hello, Bobby aka Anarcha Media here, and in this video I am going to be talking about why I can no longer take liberals seriously. Sincerely, an ex-liberal libertarian socialist. Now, this video, if you're a liberal and you're watching, is not intended to convert you. However, if any of the points I will bring up in this video do perchance convince you to convert and become a libertarian socialist / anarchist, I will be happy to welcome you as a comrade to the cause. Point one, liberals, constantly, fetishize trade unions, and yet, when it comes to supporting actions that would actually empower workers and unions against their capitalist and corporate oppressors, almost inevitably the liberals will always take the side of the bourgeoisie and the petty bourgeois against the proletarians. Point two, liberals will often bring up racist policies within the Republican Party, forgetting the fact that the Democratic Party was founded upon isolationism, imperialism, and slavery, and admittedly, whilst Republicans did not exactly have the most altruistic motives for ending slavery, and yes, there were a lot of conservative Republicans even back then who supported or were at the very least apathetic about slavery as well, and that's shitty too. But the thing is, the Republicans knew to keep those elements in check, whereas, which I'll grant you is not like as effective as deplatforming the bigots, and yes, I am very much a believer in deplatforming bigots, not so much as an ultimate solution to the problem of bigotry, because of course, universal education and things of that nature would be required to really prove the bigots wrong um and take away their power. And I'm very much for that as well. Not because I'm in favor of the expansion of the state. I am very much against that. Rather, I am in favor of local democratically managed workplaces and democratic local education. And by democratic, I mean in the sense of it's available to everyone, not in the sense of whatever bullshit the Democratic Party happens to be doing on any particular day. In case my videos up to this point have not made it abundantly clear, I am by no means a fan of the Democratic Party or any mainstream political party for that matter. Point 3. The Democratic Party, as much as it likes to bitch and moan about corporate hegemony and American imperialism, has actively been a proxy in such things historically, and not only that, it continues to be, albeit to somewhat of a lesser extent, but nonetheless, it continues to be to this very day. Point 4, the Democratic Party and liberals don't really have a coherent economic agenda, with some of them favoring old-fashioned liberalism, and free market economics, like the classical liberals and so-called classical liberals, that is, who are also so mistakenly labeled as libertarians, which of course is offensive to me as an anarchist and therefore a real fucking libertarian who is in favor of the abolition of the state, the abolition of currency, the abolition of social hierarchy, or at least the devolvement of hierarchies to the most local centers possible. An advocate of direct democracy and um, and worker managed participatory um, council communism, by which I mean traditional communism, classless, stateless, moneyless society, not the revisionist, Marxist, Leninist, vanguardist, tanky bullshit. Just so we're clear. Point 5. Liberals often create conditions that are economically unsustainable with their policies, both domestically and abroad, and instead of taking responsibility for their actions like they tell everybody fucking else in the world to do, they instead blame the conservatives. And I'm not saying that conservatives didn't do a lot of fucking shitty things, because they do, but these people are called reactionaries for a reason. Their whole political philosophy was in reaction to the French Revolution, which resulted in the birth of both liberalism and anarchism, which is my philosophy. And to be clear, anarchism does not mean chaos. It means order without rulers. Okay? It means direct, voluntary social order without hierarchical controls. As well as localized worker management of the means of production. Old-fashioned, participatory, democratic council communism. Right? That's what anarchism actually is. Point 6. Liberals don't largely know the history of their own philosophy and tend to mistakenly assume that liberals were always as quote-unquote progressive as they supposedly are today, which is also not the case. Liberalism was essentially founded as a revolt of the upper middle class English nobility against the French Revolution. It was a counter-revolution by definition, in other words, every bit as much as conservatism was a counter-revolution to liberalism, which was in itself a counter-revolution, and of course, historically, and even today, liberals and conservatives will often throw around terms like anarchism, communism, and socialism, as if these are not distinct economic and social philosophies, but just, anything that a, a person fucking doesn't like and feels oppressed by, which also makes it rather ironic that a lot of these people, both liberals and conservatives, often accuse people like me of being snowflakes and SJWs, but I digress. Point 7. Liberals, love to, criticize the right for stirring up, public controversy, and with, little evidence, and yet liberals historically and in the modern day have been no less guilty of this, if not even more so in some instances. Obviously, a recent example would be the Berkeley riots. Before that, you had the free speech rallies in the 60s, and the liberal eco-terrorist cult kidnapping Stockholm Syndrome Patti Smith situation in the 70s, as well as, of course, illiberal neo-Nazi cult leaders like Charles Manson exploiting the idealism of young liberal girls in order to manipulate them into murder. Point 8. Russiagate. Liberals exploiting the Russophobic panic of the McCarthy era and the Tea Party days in order to score political points. Now, as someone of Russian and Ukrainian descent, this hits fairly close to home for me. But even if it didn't, just just everything about Russiagate is a conflagration of all the self-defeating aspects of modern liberal philosophy. Like, liberals, and and so-called progressives claim to be opposed to hate speech. They claim to be opposed to Islamophobia. They claim to be opposed to immigration scares. And yet, they not only have, have to an extent made apologies and pandering to Trump's immigration scare, they actually created one of their own to score points against him, which is, of course, a very dangerous precedent to set for reasons I don't think I need to go into, considering the problematic history of the U.S.'s absurdly restrictive immigration policies and the hysteria around immigration, which, considering the fact that we're all fucking descended from immigrants, is fucking ridiculous, obviously. However, and that's another thing. Woodrow Wilson, the founder of progressivism, was a massive racist who was a big fan of the pro-KKK historical revisionist D.W. Griffith film Birth of a Nation, stating that the film was like writing history with lightning, and adding that my only regret about the film is that it is all so terribly true. So, yeah, whenever you hear a liberal or a progressive, act all high and mighty on the issue of racism, you have my permission to bring up that point to them. Not that they'll probably believe you or listen, but yeah, you have my permission to bring up that point to them. Finally, point 8. Liberalism in its modern form is based upon the absurd notion of trying to fit capitalist economics and reformism into a social framework that such economic frameworks are increasingly being proven all over the world to be unsustainable in, despite claiming to be for ecological harmony and shit like that. Sincerely, Bobby, aka Anarcha-Media, ex-liberal, libertarian, socialist, liberty, equality, fraternity, goodbye.